Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mario Cristobal, the Miami Hurricanes, wrapping up their first fall scrimmage during fall camp. And Dill, we got a lot of different takeaways coming out of the scrimmage. I think the amount of time that I've spent on message boards reading fall camp intel, specifically what happened this morning, kind of some sicko hours being put in, but a lot of different things to talk about, fired up to get into it. I think the big storyline coming out this morning, Cam Ward is in complete command of this offense. And you talk about something that I feel like doesn't get enough credit. Is this Miami Hurricanes offense last year? Though you look down 6.1 yards per play. That was top 25 in the country with a quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke who consistently was throwing the football to the wrong team, and a true freshman quarterback in Emory Williams who loved the kid, just wasn't ready to play at the Power 5 level during his true freshman year. What does this Hurricanes offense look like with Cam Ward, a guy that we both believe is a top 10 quarterback in the country? For Miami Hurricane fans, that's what excites me the most. And we kind of talked about it the other day, Dill. Feels eerily similar to Texas last year. And I'm not saying Miami's just going to be like Texas, but why did we believe in Texas last year? Quarterback play and line of scrimmage play. I get so many questions about why are you buying into the Miami Hurricanes hype heading into 2024? We've seen this story time and time again, underperforming. Dill, very similar answer. I believe in the quarterback. I believe what this team is along the lines of scrimmage. That's why I'm a believer in this program heading into 2024. Really excited to get into a few storylines that emerged out of the scrimmage. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Miami Hurricane fans, whether we're talking recruiting, whether we're talking the transfer portal, the 2024 season. We have a blast talking this program. The amount of support y'all show the fellas, it means the absolute world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, without further ado, I'll give you the T-Box, your biggest takeaways from this scrimmage Saturday morning for the Hurricanes program.
I mean, it's Cam Ward, and I feel like we've talked so much about everything else that Miami has going on because it's all really, really good. I mean, you love what the offensive line is going to be. Should certainly be the best offensive line, I think, in the conference, if not one of the better groups in the country. You look at some of these new wide receivers they're bringing in, whether it be freshmen like JoJo Trader and Nycar, or in transfers like Samuel Brown, along with the fact you have really good guys in the room already in Jacoby George and Restrepo, and then you obviously bring in your real bell cow back in Damian Martinez. You look, everything on this offense says they should be really, really good. If Cam Ward's good and if he's excellent, I mean, look out. He needs to only be good for this team, but if he's really, really good.
It's kind of that situation where you have all the pieces in place, and this is kind of why we said it was crucial for Miami to get the quarterback position right. Great offensive line. Should be a phenomenal rushing attack. Plenty of NFL caliber wide receivers surrounding the quarterback. If the quarterback position is what we expect it to be, this offense is going to be really difficult to stop. Now, diving into what we heard from the scrimmage, Dill, my biggest takeaway outside of Cam Ward being a dog is the offensive line. When you talk about big chunk plays in the rushing attack, really, really clean in pass protection, my biggest storyline for Miami heading into 2024 is actually not Cam Ward. It's how good that front seven is going to be on the defensive side of the football. To hear that the offensive line had a phenomenal day against what might be the best front seven they see all season, that's my biggest takeaway, because that tells you something about how good this offensive line might be in 2024.
And I think that's fair, because you look, they were really good running the ball last year. There certainly were some moments where I don't think the pass protection was unbelievable. And you look, you got guys like Maui Noah breaking him in. You got Okinola or whoever wins that battle at the other guard spot. Like, there are guys who I don't want to say they're weak links, but they're young guys. They need to, be able to work as effectively as a unit. And again, there were moments last year where, yeah, they were big, physical, tough offensive line, but there were certainly some moments where they were giving up more pressure than you like to see. So if they can be really good in pass protection, you have no question they're going to be great in the run. They're going to be able to road grade on teams. But if their pass pro is really, really good, that takes their offensive line up from being a really good unit to being that unit, like I said, it could be at the outset of this episode, being one of the better units.
Yeah, and talking about a guy like Francis Maui Noah, I think it's really important for us all to remember this kid was a true freshman playing tackle at the Power 5 level. That is extraordinarily rare. You even talk about some guys like Will Campbell or Emory Jones, for LSU. They had growing pains as true freshmen as well. What happened year two? They were some of the best tackles that we saw in all of the country. I think you see a very similar step for Francis Mauigoa. Again, there were some growing pains, specifically in pass protection for him at that right tackle spot. I expect it to get much better going into year 2. And a lot of continuity. I mean, you return guys like Jalen Rivers and Nez Cooper, Francis Mauigoa, and then you just kind of slide in Zach Carpenter, who seems to be that quiet leader on the inside of the offensive line. To hear that they're doing really well in fall camp against a front seven that, again, is going to be really good. Massive story. Second storyline for me, we're not going to talk about Damien Martinez. We know what he is. Though Chris Johnson Jr., that is, sounds like he's going to play a role within this Miami Hurricanes offense. Why is that important, in my opinion? Look at what the running back room is going to look like. It's going to be Damien Martinez and Mark Fletcher. That's a bunch of 2 grown men in that running back room. What's the best running back 3 to emerge for Miami, at least in my opinion, would probably be a guy like Chris Johnson, who is a 10-5 kid in the 100-meter dash, the fastest football player on the field. You have 2 hammers in Mark Fletcher and Damien Martinez. To hear that Chris Johnson, again, behind an offensive line that's going to give him space to operate, I think that's a really big storyline for Miami heading into 2024.
Especially because you look, that was probably the one disappointing thing from last year for their running back unit as a whole, is you didn't really feel like they had the complementary pieces. I mean, you didn't have that number 1 in Damien Martinez. Obviously, with Mark Fletcher being a younger guy, I don't think you could rely on him to just chew the yards up in the way you'd want. But him and Martinez together should be able to run the ball physically in the way you want. But again, I do think you want that guy who can, whether it's working in third down or various packages, to be able to bring in and give them a different skill set than those 2 at the top can give them, which of course isn't really being those guys who operate in space at an incredible level. Not saying they can't, but their specialty, both of them, is being physical and wearing teams out. If you have that third running back who actually can give them a unique set or give them different looks, I think that's huge for Miami.
Yeah, is Chris Johnson going to play a ton for Miami? No, probably not, because you have 2 of the better backs in the country. That being said, the limited touches that he's going to get, can he change the game? Like, he's a guy that has that kind of ability that when he has the football in his hands, he can go 80 yards for a touchdown. Can you figure out creative ways to get him involved and let him make those game-changing plays? Again, you talk about the small margins for Miami to go win an ACC championship, be a team that's tough to beat in the college football playoffs. Those kind of plays allow you to win games. Next big storyline, a guy that we've talked about extensively over the last 2 weeks, Isaiah Horton continues to emerge as a guy. We kind of said this all the way back in the spring. There were a lot of Miami fans who were kind of pounding the table for Miami as we get an ad popped up, where there were a lot of fans, Dill, that were kind of pounding the table for Miami to go to the transfer portal and get a true X wide receiver. And they went out and did that with Sam Brown, who also sounds like he's going to be a guy for Miami. Dill, Isaiah Horton, with the size-speed combination, what he can do vertically, that was kind of what we thought was maybe the missing element in Miami's passing attack, specifically in that wide receiver room. To hear that he's continuing to emerge as a guy, I am fired up for Isaiah Horton in the 2024 year.
That'll get interesting to see what they do with this rotation, just because you have so much talent in that room now, whether you're even talking younger guys like Robbie Washington, Ray Joseph, the freshman. I mean, you're so loaded with talent. You got a bunch of guys who can do a lot of different things. I'm kind of with you. I think you did need that true X to emerge, whether it's Sammy Brown, whether it's Isaiah Horton. That was probably the one thing you were going to be missing going into this year, with obviously Colby Young moving on. But if they can get a guy who can play really good on the boundary, I don't really see where there's a hole in this wide receiver room.
Yeah, we talk about one other guy, Ray Joseph. It kind of just flying under the radar. I feel like, I don't know if this is fair to say, but maybe Miami Hurricane fans are casting Ray Joseph aside and just picking up the new toy in JoJo Trader, which, again, I get JoJo Trader. I'm a big fan of JoJo Trader. I would not forget about Ray Joseph. So much juice with the football in his hands. Again, is he going to play a ton because of how loaded this wide receiver room is? I'm not really sure, but that's kind of a storyline to follow in terms of how Shannon Dawson is using all this talent in the wide receiver room, because the cupboards are stocked. And now for your Shannon Dawson, you're the chef. You got to put that recipe together in terms of how to best use these kind of guys.
The one thing I think you probably like to hear more of coming out of the fall camp is him developing a connection with somebody at a really, really high level, where you almost feel like he'll be the guy to look for. And I think naturally, everyone thinks it's going to be Restrepo. I would imagine be Restrepo too. But I think you'd love to hear, like, I don't know. I don't even know how you judge this tangibly, but some connection going, because I really would like to have that offense run through Restrepo.
I think it's Restrepo. And you go back to spring, it was Restrepo. And I think now it's just you have guys like Sam Brown, the new face. He's obviously going to get reported on. Isaiah Horton, just a really fun player to talk about who's clearly taken a step going into year 3. I still think it's Xavier Restrepo. I think maybe some of the reporters are just kind of sick and tired of talking about Xavier Restrepo and want to give some love to some other wide receivers.
That's a good point. The spring game did kind of seem like when it was third down or when the pressure was on, something like that, it was going to Restrepo. And I really do think he's probably the guy.
I fully expect him to lead this pass catch room in targets, receptions, and yards. Fully expect it. Last storyline, tight end room. I am continuing to be – I'll say this cautiously optimistic about the tight ends. We've talked about this a lot during the offseason. It sounds like Elijah Arroyo is back to full health, which is massive. And then it sounds like Riley Williams is taking that step. And again, similar to how we talked about Francis Mauigoa, it's really hard for true freshmen to get on the football field consistently at the tight end position. Outside of Brock Bowers, it's hard to name tight ends that immediately come in and can impact as a freshman. Riley Williams played solid football as a freshman. They were trying to get him on the football field. He's special. Like, I think he by far has the highest ceiling in this tight end room. And it does sound like he might be taking that step to really be a difference maker at the tight end position that Miami just simply lacked last year. They'll go into the defensive side of the football again. Okay, Miami's offense had a good day. I think that's really good for Miami's offense. I'm still not stressing about the front seven. I think this is going to be one of the better front sevens we see in all of college football. I think the question that you have is in the secondary. I don't know if there's much that we can talk about right now until the bullets start flying on Saturdays in the fall, but that continues to be probably the biggest storyline for Miami Hurricane fans in terms of what you want to make sure is right heading into 2024.
And that'll be the question leading right up to game time, because obviously fall camp is fall camp, and it's fun to talk about the storylines for sure. But at the end of the day, you're breaking in so many new faces. You have almost zero continuity on this team. And again, when you have enough talent, you can sometimes overcome that. Well, if you can just be sticky and play press man and do your thing. You don't necessarily need to be like the Michigan Wolverines, the secondary, where you're just the communications out of this world and they're always in the right spot. So again, I think you can be cautiously optimistic, but at the end of the day, it's really hard for us outsiders to sit there and make any real assessment until they go play Florida, who will certainly be testing them in the second.
It does sound like Michelle Powell continues to be a guy, and I think he's by far the most important name in the back end because of the versatility. Like, you're thin at nickel and safety, and so if you need him to play nickel, you can play nickel. If you need him to play safety, you can play safety. That's going to be massive in terms of Miami maximizing the players they can trust in the secondary. And then the second part, and I continue to say it, Dill, the best way to cover up a secondary is the Georgia Bulldog method. It's having an elite front seven, an elite pass rush. Or again, I said this 2 days ago, so I'll keep it short, but I'll say it again. Kirby Smart was massively concerned with the secondary in 2021 heading into that season. It didn't matter because you had guys like Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter up front. If Miami's front seven, specifically the pass rush, can be as good as we think it can be, it's going to mitigate our question marks at the secondary significantly. That's all we got coming out of fall camp. Again, we'll continue to talk about this program, a lot of different storylines to follow. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.